you.
You bet you ain't. You think I sit home all day looking at bracelets? Ha! Of all the dumb bunnies. What do you think I'm doing while you're out pulling your dirty...
Behind all the glitz and glamour, Hollywood's golden age was a battlefield where only the strong rose to the top. From bending the rules to outshining rivals, here are the 20 most ruthless actresses from that era.
I never thought you British could get so emotional, especially in a public place.
I apologize for making pictures.
Oh, it's all right. I don't mind being called names or pushed around or even kicked in the...
Number 20. Marlene Dietrich. Marlene Dietrich wasn't your average Golden Age actress. She was a force. Dietrich was ruthless in the best way possible. She wasn't afraid to take risks, whether that meant wearing a tuxedo at a time when women were expected to swan around in dresses, or turning down roles she deemed unworthy of her talent. She even refused to conform to Hollywood's idea of beauty. Instead, she carved out her own, androgynous, daring, and utterly magnetic. She wasn't just ahead of her time, she was light years ahead. In her films, Dietrich was the ultimate femme fatale, someone who could ensnare you with a look and destroy you with a smirk. Think Shanghai Express, where she oozes danger, or Morocco, where she kisses another woman on screen, a bold move in 1930. Off-screen, she was just as compelling. She had a string of lovers, men and women alike. She carried herself with a confidence that could silence a room, but Dietrich's ruthlessness wasn't just personal, it was professional. She famously battled with director Josef von Sternberg, the man who helped launch her Hollywood career. She knew her worth and didn't let anyone, even the guy who made her a star, control her. And when Hollywood started to age her out of the spotlight, as it often did to actresses, she pivoted. She reinvented herself as a cabaret performer. What makes Dietrich so fascinating for today's audience is how unapologetic she was. She didn't care about fitting into neat boxes or being likable. She only cared about being iconic. And she pulled it off with ruthless precision, leaving a legacy that still inspires artists, rebels, and fashionistas to this day.
I'm sorry, Your Highness. I'm sorry he saw you.
You did it deliberately.
Number 19. Lucille Ball. Most people know her as the zany, red-headed queen of I Love Lucy, but let's be real. Lucille Ball was running Hollywood while everyone else was still figuring out how to walk. Lucille wasn't just funny, she was a powerhouse. Beneath that goofy grin and those wild schemes was a woman who played the game so ruthlessly that she practically owned the board. First off, Lucy didn't waltz into fame overnight. She clawed her way up. She started as a model and a queen of the B's, as in B-movies. She worked tirelessly in low-budget films, always waiting for her big break, and when it didn't come, she made it happen. By the time I Love Lucy came along, Lucy had already learned how to hustle like no one else. Here's the tea. When CBS didn't want to cast her real-life husband, Desi Arnaz, as her TV husband, because he was Cuban and Hollywood was full of prejudice, Lucy was like, "Watch me." She and Desi went on the road with a live act, proving their chemistry was pure gold. CBS had no choice but to give in. Isn't that boss-level persistence? And then there's the Desilu Studios story. Oh, you thought Lucy was just an actress? She and Desi co-founded a production company that went on to produce hits like Star Trek and Mission Impossible. And when their marriage ended, Lucy didn't just take the company in the divorce, she ran it. She wasn't just a figurehead. She became the first woman to head a major Hollywood studio at a time when the only other women in studios were answering phones or serving coffee. Ruthless? You bet. Iconic? Without question. Lucy's ruthlessness wasn't about stepping on people. It was about proving that talent, hard work, and guts could smash through the barriers Hollywood threw at her.
Hired you from the board of directors.
You drove Al Steele to his grave, and now you're trying to stab me in the back? Forget it!
Number 18. Faye Dunaway. Dunaway was the very definition of "don't mess with me" wrapped in old Hollywood glamour. If you think being a star in the golden age of Hollywood was all glitz and red carpets, Dunaway's story is here to remind you that it also required grit, ambition, and just the right amount of cutthroat attitude. Let's start with the fact that Dunaway wasn't playing by anyone else's rules. When she hit the scene in the late 60s, she brought an intensity that felt almost too big for the screen. But that's exactly why it worked. In Bonnie and Clyde, she wasn't just some sidekick in berets and pencil skirts. She was electric, redefining what it meant to be a leading lady. Behind the scenes, Dunaway was notorious for her laser focus and perfectionism. Some called her difficult, but let's be real. When men did the same thing, they were called brilliant. Dunaway wasn't here to make friends. She was here to make art. She threw herself into her roles with an intensity that bordered on obsessive. In Chinatown, she created a femme fatale so layered and tragic that decades later, people still can't stop quoting, "She's my sister and my daughter." And as Joan Crawford in Mommy Dearest, Ruthless doesn't even begin to cover it. She swung for the fences and gave a performance so over the top, it became a legend. Her personal life had its own brand of drama, like throwing a glass of wine at Roman Polanski or feuding with directors who dared to challenge her vision. But Dunaway's ruthlessness wasn't just about the work, it was about survival. Hollywood has never been kind to women, especially ones who age or refuse to stay in the lanes they're assigned. Dunaway fought tooth and nail to stay relevant, and she never let the industry define her.
Anyhow.
Oh, it's that insane temper of yours. You promised to change. You promised not to embarrass me in public that way. Well, tonight showed me that you can't change. It simply isn't in you.
Number 17. Loretta Young. She might seem like the epitome of a polished, proper golden age starlet, but don't be fooled by that angelic smile or the perfectly coiffed hair. She was ruthless in her own, oh-so-classy way. Imagine a woman so determined to make it in Hollywood that she started acting in silent films at age 3 and didn't stop hustling until she became one of the most respected actresses of her time. That was Loretta Young. Young mastered the art of being Hollywood's sweetheart while wielding a quiet but undeniable power. She was a devout Catholic, known for her prim and proper public image, but behind the scenes, she was navigating scandals and studio politics like a chess master. One of her boldest moves? The whole Clark Gable situation. In the 1930s, Young had a secret love affair with Gable while filming The Call of the Wild. She became pregnant, a major taboo back then, and instead of letting the scandal ruin her, she orchestrated an elaborate cover-up worthy of a Netflix series. She went on vacation and had the baby in secret, then later adopted her own daughter, Judy. Decades later, when the truth came out, it only added to her legacy as a woman who always handled her business. Loretta's real ruthlessness showed in her career. She wasn't just another pretty face waiting for roles to come to her. She demanded and got the best parts. When she realized TV was the next big thing, she jumped in before most of her peers even knew what a cathode ray tube was. Her show, The Loretta Young Show, made her one of the first actresses to transition successfully from film to television, a move that earned her 3 Emmy Awards. Number 16. Clara Bow. Clara Bow wasn't your average actress. She was the original It Girl. To earn that title, she was as bold, wild, and unapologetically ambitious as they come. If you think being famous today is tough, imagine making it big when movies didn't even have sound yet. Clara didn't just survive the silent era, she owned it, becoming one of the first mega stars who made people flock to theaters just to see her face light up the screen. And she did it all with a devil-may-care attitude that made her the ultimate 1920s rebel. Clara grew up dirt poor in Brooklyn, facing more hardship than most of us can imagine. But instead of letting it break her, she let it fuel her. She entered a beauty contest that promised a chance at Hollywood, won, and used it as her golden ticket. Once she hit Tinseltown, she worked relentlessly to stand out in a sea of would-be starlets. Studios threw her into dozens of low-budget movies, thinking they could chew her up and spit her out. Instead, Clara's magnetic energy turned even the lamest scripts into box office gold. She wasn't just talented, she was fearless. In an era when actresses were expected to be demure and ladylike, Clara radiated raw, untamed sex appeal. She played flappers who danced, flirted, and broke every rule in the book. The audience couldn't get enough. But Clara didn't just play bold women, she was one. She took on daring roles, fought for higher pay, and refused to let the studio system control her. She practically invented the idea of the modern movie star. Clara Bow was ruthless in her refusal to be anything other than herself. She didn't just survive the golden age, she defined it, one scandal and sly smile at a time.
Use men to get the things you want.
Number 15. Barbara Stanwyck. If you've ever been captivated by a femme fatale or a tough-as-nails heroine, chances are Stanwyck did it first and did it best. Her story is a classic rags-to-riches tale with a twist. Born into poverty and orphaned by age 4, Barbara clawed her way out of Brooklyn and into Hollywood with nothing but grit and ambition. She wasn't handed a thing. When she started out, she worked as a chorus girl, learning the value of hard work and how to captivate a crowd. That hustle? It never left her. Stanwyck didn't play nice to climb the ladder. She played smart. She was versatile, taking on roles that other actresses wouldn't dare touch. Whether she was scheming in Double Indemnity, Connecticut, Stanwyck owned every role. Behind the scenes, she was just as savvy. While other actresses were busy battling egos or playing the studio system's game, Stanwyck was quietly building one of the most respected careers in Hollywood. She didn't throw tantrums or stir up scandals. She showed up, nailed her lines, and made everyone else look like amateurs. Directors loved her because she was no-nonsense and always professional. She worked fast, hit her marks, and delivered gold with ruthless efficiency. Barbara Stanwyck didn't just survive the golden age, she thrived. She outworked, outperformed, and outlasted most of her peers, proving you didn't have to play by anyone's rules to win. Number 14. Lana Turner. Lana Turner was the original queen of drama, glamour, and getting exactly what she wanted. If Hollywood was a battlefield, Lana strutted in wearing heels, batting her lashes, and taking no prisoners. Her story started like a movie plot. A teenager sipping a Coke at a drugstore, spotted by a talent scout, and boom, she's whisked off to Hollywood. But don't get it twisted, her rise to fame wasn't just luck. Lana knew how to work what she had. Her first major appearance in They Won't Forget as the Sweater Girl turned her into a sensation. She leaned into her bombshell image and made it impossible for anyone to forget her. Turner wasn't afraid to shake things up. When studios tried to box her into the role of sexy but shallow starlet, she proved she could act, thank you very much. In The Postman Always Rings Twice, she brought heat and complexity to one of the most iconic femme fatales ever put on screen. She made it clear, she wasn't just a pretty face, she was a force. Off-screen, Lana's life was as dramatic as any of her movies. She had a string of marriages, 7 to be exact, and a scandal that shook Hollywood to its core. When her teenage daughter Cheryl killed her abusive boyfriend in self-defense, the trial became headline news. But Lana, she kept her head high, weathered the storm, and came back even stronger. If there's one thing she knew how to do, it was survive and look fabulous while doing it. What made Lana so ruthless wasn't cutthroat ambition. It was her ability to adapt, charm, and endure. She played the long game, staying relevant in an industry that chewed women up and spit them out. While others faded into obscurity, Lana kept shining, always ready for her next act.
And if I do, then you are through, boy. My baby, that's the end of you. The end of you.
Number 13. Dorothy Dandridge. Dorothy Dandridge was a trailblazer who shattered Hollywood's glass ceilings with style, talent, and a determination so fierce that it practically burned. She was the first black woman nominated for a Best Actress Oscar, but don't let the history books fool you. Her rise to the top was anything but smooth, and Dorothy played the game with a quiet ruthlessness that demanded the industry pay attention. Born into showbiz, Dorothy started out singing and dancing with her sister in the Dandridge Sisters. They performed everywhere, from small clubs to big-time stages, rubbing elbows with the likes of Louis Armstrong. But Dorothy had her sights set on more than the sidelines. She wanted the spotlight, and she owned it. Hollywood at the time was drowning in racial prejudice, pushing black performers into small, one-note roles, but Dorothy wasn't about to be boxed in. She had leading lady energy, and she made sure everyone knew it. Her breakthrough role came in Carmen Jones. Absolute fire. Dorothy's portrayal of the sultry, confident Carmen wasn't just good, it was legendary. She was bold, unapologetically sensual, and impossible to ignore. But don't think for a second Hollywood made it easy. Studios hesitated to cast her in leading roles because they couldn't fathom a black actress headlining mainstream films. Dorothy's response? Keep slaying, keep pushing, and refuse to settle for less than she deserved. Off-screen, Dorothy's life was a mix of glamour and grit. She navigated an industry riddled with racism and sexism, all while dealing with personal heartbreaks. Her relationships were complicated, and she fought tirelessly for her daughter, who had special needs. Dorothy Dandridge wasn't ruthless in a cutthroat way, she was ruthless in her refusal to let a broken system define her. She fought for roles, for respect, and for representation in a time when Hollywood barely acknowledged her humanity.
You bet you ain't. You think I sat home all day looking at bracelets? Ha! Of all the dumb bunnies. What do you think I'm doing while you're out pulling your dirty...
Number 12. Jean Harlow. Jean Harlow was the original blonde bombshell who turned Hollywood on its head with her charm, wit, and undeniable magnetism. While other actresses were playing it safe, Harlow strutted onto the scene with a wink, a smirk, and an attitude that said, "I know what I want, and I'm going to take it." And that she did. From hearts to headlines and box office records, she took it all. Harlow's big break came when Howard Hughes cast her in Hell's Angels. She didn't just play the role, she owned it, with a sultry presence that turned her into an overnight sensation. From there, she became MGM's Golden Girl, cranking out hit after hit like Red Dust and Dinner at 8. What made Harlow special wasn't just her platinum hair or curve-hugging gowns. It was her ability to be sexy and hilarious. She could deliver a zinger like no one else, making audiences fall in love with her quick wit and playful confidence. But don't let that glitz fool you. Harlow was ruthless in her rise to fame. Hollywood in the 1930s wasn't exactly kind to young actresses, but Harlow knew how to work the system. She played the dumb blonde on screen, but was razor-sharp in real life, navigating studio politics like a pro. When MGM wanted to mold her into a cookie-cutter starlet, she leaned into her bold, unapologetic personality instead, and audiences adored her for it. She showed up, worked harder than anyone else, and became one of the highest-paid actresses in Hollywood. If that's not boss energy, what is? Her untimely death at just 26 cemented her as a legend. But even in her short career, Harlow rewrote the rules of what it meant to be a leading lady.
Interested only in the shortest distance between these 2 points. Must you flirt?
Well, I don't have to, but I find it natural.
Suppress it.
I'll try.
Number 11. Greta Garbo. While other actresses of the Golden Age were busy making headlines, Garbo built her legacy by keeping everyone at arm's length and making Hollywood chase her. If there's a playbook for being iconic, she definitely wrote it. Garbo didn't storm into Hollywood guns blazing. She floated in like a Scandinavian goddess, full of understated elegance and an almost supernatural ability to command attention. Her early films, like Flesh and the Devil, showcased her silent-era mastery. She didn't need words to captivate you, just one look and you were done. When talkies came along, everyone worried her heavy accent would ruin her career. Garbo laughed, probably in Swedish, and kept slaying, delivering iconic performances in films like Anna Christie and Grand Hotel. She even made a dramatic pivot into comedy with Ninotchka, proving she could do it all. What made Garbo truly ruthless was her refusal to play Hollywood's game. She wasn't out partying, doing press tours, or spilling her personal drama to the tabloids. She barely gave interviews and didn't care about being accessible. In fact, she's famous for saying, "I want to be alone." Yes, she really said it. But here's the twist. Her aloofness made people obsessed with her. She understood that mystery was her superpower and she wielded it like a pro. Garbo's career wasn't just about acting, it was about art. She fought for creative control, something almost unheard of for actresses at the time. She worked with the best directors, demanded the best scripts, and refused to settle for mediocrity. When the studio system tried to pigeonhole her, she walked away. Literally. At 35, Garbo retired at the peak of her career, leaving everyone wanting more. That's the ultimate mic drop.
And a little kind.
Norma, I haven't done anything.
Of course you haven't. I wouldn't let you.
Number 10. Gloria Swanson. Gloria Swanson wasn't just a Hollywood star. She was a force of nature who practically rewrote the rules of fame. Even better, she made it look glamorous and effortlessly chic. Swanson didn't just show up in Hollywood, she took it over. She was a silent film legend, starring in major hits like Sadie Thompson and Male and Female, where she captured audiences with her beauty, intensity, and dramatic flair. But she wasn't just playing roles, she was creating an image where she made sure it was unforgettable. Swanson wasn't just another pretty face, she was one of the first actresses to recognize her worth and take control of her own destiny. She knew her star power and made sure everyone else knew it too. When the talkies came and wiped out many silent film stars, Gloria didn't just adapt, she reinvented herself. She didn't fade into obscurity, she fought back, and in the 1950s, she gave one of the most iconic performances of her career in Sunset Boulevard, where she played a faded, silent film star desperate for a comeback. It was both a perfect fit for her and a biting commentary on the Hollywood system that chewed up and spit out so many others. But she didn't just star in the movie, she owned it, making a statement about aging in the industry and the price of fame. But the real ruthlessness? Gloria Swanson built an empire. She wasn't waiting for Hollywood to decide her fate, she made it. She was one of the first actresses to realize she could be both a star and a businesswoman. And she took her career into her own hands by producing films and working behind the scenes. She had multiple failed marriages, but she never let her personal life slow her down. She just kept climbing, refusing to be sidelined.
I could die right now and nobody'd be confused. How about you, Max?
How about me what?
Suppose you drop dead. What about your inventory?
I ain't.
Number 9. Bette Davis. There is no denying that Bette Davis had a will of iron and a hunger for greatness that could not be satisfied. But when Bette first arrived in Hollywood, she was not what studios were looking for. She was tough, a little bit scrappy, and didn't fit the mold of the typical glamorous movie star. Studios told her she was too ugly and too intense to make it. Bette didn't just laugh that off, she turned it into her secret weapon. While other actresses were busy playing the part of the sweet, perfect starlet, Bette showed up and owned every role with a fierce intensity that no one could ignore. She didn't play the game the way people expected her to, she bent it to her will. Bette was known for speaking truth to power and fighting for the kinds of roles that other actresses wouldn't dare to ask for. Complex, powerful, and downright gritty characters. Take her legendary role in Jezebel, the role that won her an Oscar. It was a bold choice, a woman who's so stubborn and proud she goes against the grain and rules of society. Bette didn't just play that part, she became it with a fire that was impossible to ignore. And let's not forget, she was legendary for her feuds. Bette didn't just get along with everyone, she clashed with everyone. Joan Crawford being the most infamous of her rivals. Their rivalry wasn't just dramatic, it was public, with both actresses taking every chance to outshine each other, whether through gossip or in their performances. But here's the thing, Bette didn't care about being liked, she cared about being the best, and she would burn every bridge necessary to make sure she was the one standing at the top. She was the storm, the thunder, and the lightning all rolled into one.
I'm the boy to do it.
You seem quite contemptuous of me all of a sudden.
Number 8. Katharine Hepburn. Katharine Hepburn was beyond revolutionary. If there was anyone who knew how to be unapologetically herself and get away with it, it was her. Hepburn was never the typical Hollywood glamour girl. While the actresses wore frilly gowns and posed for photos in Hollywood's perfect, soft-focus world, Katharine was there wearing pants, challenging gender norms, and raising eyebrows. She didn't fit the cookie-cutter mold of what a leading lady should be, and she knew it. The studios hated her for it. At first, they couldn't figure her out. She was too outspoken, too athletic, too different. But Katharine didn't care. She didn't want to be another pretty face. She wanted to be great. And to do that, she had to be herself, no matter how much Hollywood tried to shape her. Her career was proof that being ruthlessly authentic could get you everything. Katharine starred in iconic films like The Philadelphia Story, Bringing Up Baby, and Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, each one showcasing her sharp wit, physicality, and refusal to be anything but exactly who she was. But here's the thing. Katharine wasn't just about performances. She played the long game, too. She was a strategic mastermind. While other stars were tied to studio contracts and forced to make movies they hated, Katharine negotiated her freedom. She didn't need Hollywood's approval. When the studios wanted to push her into playing the delicate damsel, she shot back with roles that were intelligent, independent, and all about taking charge of her own story. And let's not forget the feuds. Katharine Hepburn wasn't afraid to challenge the status quo, and that meant sometimes going head-to-head with Hollywood's biggest stars. But here's the thing, her feuds weren't fueled by drama. They were fueled by principles. She didn't need to be liked by everyone. She just needed to be respected.
What is it? Be quick.
Tell me, Scarlett, do you never shrink from marrying men you don't love?
How did you ever get out of jail? Why didn't they hang you?
Number 7. Vivien Leigh. Vivien Leigh was more than just a stunning beauty. She was a master at playing the Hollywood game, bending elegance with ambition in a way that was just as fierce as it was glamorous. When she arrived on the scene, the world took notice not just because of her beauty, but because of the way she carried herself. Cool, calculating, and absolutely magnetic. Ruthless? Oh, she was ruthless in the best way possible, using her charm, cunning, and determination to climb to the top and stay there. Vivien's portrayal of Scarlett O'Hara is one of the most iconic performances in cinema history, and she didn't just fall into the role, she fought for it. The studios weren't sure at first. Scarlett had to be a perfect balance of selfishness and vulnerability, and many thought that Vivien wasn't the right choice. After countless auditions and tests, the role was hers, and she owned it, delivering a performance that was both groundbreaking and breathtaking. But Vivien wasn't just a pretty face on screen. Off-screen, she was fiercely strategic, managing her career like a seasoned pro. She didn't settle for playing roles that were beneath her. She demanded the roles that challenged her, that let her stretch her talents. Of course, her personal life was filled with drama, and Vivien knew how to stir the pot when it suited her. Her tumultuous marriage to actor Laurence Olivier is the stuff of Hollywood legends. Passionate, complicated, and full of fireworks. They were one of the most glamorous couples of the time, but their relationship wasn't all roses. Through all the highs and lows, Vivien's legacy endures because she was more than just a star. She was a woman who knew exactly how to navigate the ruthless, backstabbing world of Hollywood.
Mashed potatoes, Miss Bankhead? No, thank you very much. Whenever I rehearse a play, I always on a very strict diet. No, thank you. But life is short.
Number 6. Tallulah Bankhead. Tallulah Bankhead was the original wild child of Hollywood. She didn't just play by the rules, she shredded them with a cigarette in one hand and a cocktail in the other. If there's a title for most unapologetic star of the golden age, it would be hers, hands down. Tallulah didn't care what anyone thought about her. She was always going to be Tallulah. She stormed onto the Hollywood scene with a reputation that preceded her, a mix of devil-may-care attitude, sharp wit, and enough drama to make anyone else nervous. While other actresses were trying to keep it proper, Tallulah was out there smoking in public, swearing like a sailor, and having all the fun she could manage. Her behavior was wild, but it wasn't just reckless. It was a masterclass in how to turn the scandal into stardom. Her career was a whirlwind of bold moves, jaw-dropping performances, and a constant game of one-upmanship. But it wasn't just about the roles she played, it was about how she played them. Tallulah didn't go for the sweet, demure roles that so many actresses were expected to take on. No, she went for the ones that required big, brash characters women who were as bold and uncompromising as she was. She wasn't just an actress, she was a force of nature. Behind the scenes, Tallulah was as fierce as they come. She didn't play the game the way the studios wanted her to, she played it her way. She often clashed with directors and co-stars, refusing to be told what to do, and if someone crossed her, they'd quickly find out just how sharp her tongue could be. Her reputation for drama, both on-screen and in real life, made her one of Hollywood's most memorable figures. She didn't just play the part of the diva, she lived it, pushing the boundaries of what was acceptable for women in the industry.
What dance did you have in mind? How about doing the Charleston? I happen to know that you're the Texas State Champion.
Number 5. Ginger Rogers. Ginger Rogers was a powerhouse of grace, charm, and sass, but don't let that smooth dance style fool you. This lady was ruthless when it came to getting ahead in the cutthroat world of Hollywood. While other actresses were still figuring out how to land a spot in the limelight, Ginger was already dancing circles around them. And let's be honest, she did it all while wearing heels. Her partnership with Fred Astaire is legendary, one of the most iconic duos in film history. But here's the twist. While Fred may have gotten most of the spotlight for those stunning dance routines, Ginger was the one with the real star power. She wasn't just the pretty, graceful counterpart. She was a savvy, sharp, and ambitious woman who knew exactly how to make her mark on the industry. Ginger wasn't going to let anyone take credit for her success. In fact, she was one of the first actresses to prove that being a dancer didn't mean being second to a male lead. She stepped up, showed off her incredible talents, and held her own with Fred every single time, earning the kind of respect that few in Hollywood could match. But Ginger's ruthlessness wasn't just about the dancing. When Hollywood tried to cast her as the sweet, bubbly blonde, Ginger was having none of it. She fought for roles that allowed her to show off her versatility, from comedies to dramas and everything in between. And guess what? She made that happen. In fact, Ginger won an Oscar for her performance in Kitty Foyle, a major win that proves she was more than just a dance star. Ginger's ruthlessness also came through in her personal life. She didn't let Hollywood's pressures or the scandals of her time tear her down. If anything, she used them to fuel her ambition, refusing to let anything derail her success.
Young lady, are you trying to show contempt for this court?
No, I'm doing my best to hide it.
Number 4. Mae West. Mae West, the kind of actress who didn't just walk into a room, she owned it, strutted across the floor, and made everyone else want to take notes. If Hollywood was a jungle, Mae West was the queen of the concrete wilds, and she wasn't afraid to show it. While other actresses in the golden age were trying to fit into Hollywood's narrow standards of femininity and charm, Mae West was breaking them. She wasn't just a pretty face with a seductive voice. She was a force. She wrote her own roles, crafted her own image, and made sure that everything she did in front of the camera was designed to get attention. Mae wasn't interested in being just another leading lady. She wanted to be the one everyone talked about, the one who pushed the boundaries of what was possible. Her first big breakthrough was the play Sex, which got her arrested. Yes, arrested for indecency. But in true Mae West fashion, she turned the controversy into her signature move, flipping it from scandal into a clever marketing tactic. She knew exactly how to get people talking, and while they were shocked by her boldness, they couldn't look away. When she made the jump to Hollywood, she didn't just show up, she took over. In films like She'd Done Him Wrong and I'm No Angel, Mae just didn't act. She redefined what it meant to be a woman in Hollywood. Her characters were sassy, sexual, and supremely confident. She didn't care if the world thought she was too much. She made sure her on-screen persona was larger than life, and audiences loved her for it. Mae was unapologetically sexual, witty, and smart. 3 things that made her a ruthless force in an era where women were expected to be quiet, demure, and obedient.
Are you decent?
Me?
Number 3. Rita Hayworth. Rita Hayworth was the epitome of a golden age goddess, a movie star who made men swoon and women want to be her, all while secretly playing Hollywood's game like a pro. Her journey to the top wasn't handed to her. It was earned with a combination of stunning beauty, impressive talent, and a ruthless determination to succeed. If you think of Rita as just another glamorous starlet, think again. She was in control of every inch of her career, and she played the system like a violin. At the height of her fame, Rita was everywhere. She was the screen siren who could do it all: dance, sing, act, and make you believe she was the one. In her iconic role in Gilda, she gave one of the most famous, jaw-dropping performances in film history with that unforgettable "put the blame on Mame" scene. But here's the kicker. While everyone was swooning over Rita's sultry, seductive image, Rita was the one behind the scenes calling the shots. She wasn't just the woman in the spotlight. She was the mastermind, making sure that everything from her career trajectory to her personal image was exactly how she wanted it. And let's not forget Rita's ruthless side when it came to her relationships. She played Hollywood's dating game like a champion, using her personal life to fuel her career, but also keeping it just mysterious enough to keep everyone talking. Her marriages and love affairs were never just tabloid fodder. They were calculated moves, ways of enhancing her fame and maintaining her top-tier status. She wasn't just a victim of Hollywood's pressure. She wielded that pressure like a sword, making sure every headline worked to her advantage.
The proconsul of the Roman Empire.
I asked it of Julius Caesar. I demand it of you.
Number 2. Elizabeth Taylor. Elizabeth Taylor was the definition of ruthless, but in the most glamorous, over-the-top, and deliciously scandalous way possible. She wasn't just a star, she was the star, a name that commanded attention and turned heads every time she walked into a room. Let's start with her rise to fame. Elizabeth was born into a world where being pretty and talented wasn't always enough. You had to work the system. So she did. From a very young age, she was a studio favorite, first catching the world's eye in films like National Velvet and Lassie Come Home. But while others were content with playing innocent, wholesome roles, Elizabeth had her sights set on more than just good girl parts. She was a risk-taker, someone who wasn't afraid to show off her sexy, daring side. Then there was her ability to turn her personal life into pure drama, and trust me, no one did it better than Elizabeth. She wasn't content with being a tabloid curiosity. She turned her love life into a full-blown Hollywood saga. With 7 marriages, Elizabeth kept the public fascinated by her every move. This included a high-profile romance with actor Richard Burton, who she married twice because, why not? Elizabeth wasn't just about the gossip. Behind all the glitz and glam, she was a brilliant businesswoman who knew how to navigate the ruthless world of Hollywood to her advantage. When the industry tried to pigeonhole her into certain roles, she pushed back, taking control of her career in a way that was downright impressive. She was one of the first to demand better pay, better roles, and more influence over the kind of films she starred in. And guess what? She got them. Elizabeth knew how to play the game, and she played it better than most.
Stevens told you.
No, he's never mentioned you.
Miss Allen, here's the blue negligee you ordered.
Stay out of here. But I've known about you for some time. That'll be news to Stevens.
Number 1. Joan Crawford. Joan Crawford was the kind of actress who owned Hollywood, by any means necessary. If Hollywood had a throne, Joan Crawford would be sitting on it, staring down anyone who thought they could take her crown. To be clear, Joan didn't come from money, luxury, or connections. She came from humble beginnings and worked her butt off to climb the Hollywood ladder. In a town full of beautiful women vying for attention, Joan made it clear that she wasn't just another face in the crowd. She was the face with those sharp cheekbones, fiery red lips, and that unforgettable gaze. She was every inch a movie star, but she was also ruthless in making sure the world knew it. Her rise to fame wasn't handed to her. Joan started with small roles and quickly realized that in order to stand out, she had to push harder than the next person. Now, behind the scenes, that's where Joan really showed her ruthless side. Joan was known for being a fierce negotiator, and she wasn't afraid to stand her ground when it came to roles, pay, and how she was portrayed. Her relationships with fellow stars were also legendary for their tension. Stories of her rivalry with other actresses, like Bette Davis, are stuff of Hollywood legend, and not without reason. She didn't just fight for her position, she was willing to step over anyone who got in her way. Then there's her famous on-set behavior. Joan was no stranger to being a diva. Whether it was throwing tantrums or manipulating situations to her advantage, she knew how to ensure she was the center of attention. Know any other ruthless queens from that era? Do share your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button. You also can't miss the next video on screen.